It is one of the most anticipated general elections in recent years, and tonight we are on the home stretch. This is Choice 2013. Right, the wait is coming to an end in just 5 days' time. Kenyans from across the country and beyond will be making that all-important date with destiny. For the first time since independence, the country will be holding a general election and a completely new constitution drawn by the Kenyan people. And tonight, we begin that new journey together from the most versatile studio in the country. From here, we shall cover for you this election in the way only we can. In a short while, we will be crossing live to each of our multiple locations across the country from where we shall be covering for you this historic vote. But first to our Super Wall, where Eric Njoka has a preview of some of the numbers that we will be taking a look at tonight. Eric.
Thank you very much, Linda, and good evening, viewers. It's indeed true. We shall be taking a look at the latest opinion polls from the counties, and tonight we focus on Kakamega, Kisumu, and Machakos. We shall also be giving you key economic figures, and we focus on the election and the economy. And this will be my Super Wall for tonight. And in the upper half of our election center, Bonnie Tunya will be crunching the numbers tonight. Bonnie, good evening. What do you have up there?
Good evening, Jock, and many thanks. It feels good to be up here. With just 5 days to go to the next elections, we will be interrogating these party manifestos. What exactly do they mean? And with me is a team of experts. I'm talking about Kareithi Murimbi, Dr. Mohamed Omar, and Kwame Owino. Now, these gentlemen will be bringing to you, do these manifestos make sense and what you should worry about? But first, over to you, Linda.
Right, Bonnie, many thanks. Of course, that is the discussion that a lot of Kenyans would really like to listen to, and they'd like to have an idea of what you will be talking about. But for now, let me take you to Edith Kimani, who will be at our Google Hangout looking at what Kenyans in the diaspora are saying. Edith.
Right, thank you very much, Linda. Good to Eric Njoka is saying he has his Super Wall, where I have my hotspot. This is where we'll be having the Google Hangout. If you have no idea what that is, not to worry. This is where we'll be bringing people from different parts of the country, interrogating questions of the economy. Do they think they're included in the country's fiscal policy? A question we'll be answering for you shortly. Linda, back to you.
Edith, thanks so much. We shall also be speaking to a team of experienced journalists deployed around the country. In Mwingi, we will be live with Asha Mwilu, who is following the tragic story of a road accident that claimed tens of lives there. In Mombasa, we have Ferdinand Omondi, who is live from our bureau there. Here in Nairobi, Rita Tinina is in our city center studio with the latest news, while Betty Chalo will be talking us through a virtual world from our news center. Betty.
Many thanks, Linda. Tonight, with the help of our state-of-the-art virtual studio, I will tell you why 14 out of the 47 counties are set to finally receive relatively lump sum revenue allocations that will steer development in those particular regions that have indeed lagged behind in education, quality healthcare, and infrastructure. I will showcase, using our high-tech graphics, the counties that I'm talking about and the monies that the Commission on Revenue Allocation is set to give those counties once the devolved governments are in place. Looking forward to your company in the virtual world in a short while, but for now, let me take you to Rita.
Well, thank you very much, Betty. From our city center studio, we will be looking at the country's preparedness ahead of next week's polls. I will be telling you about a meeting between President Mwai Kibaki, the IEBC, and security chiefs, plus a rating of the level of preparedness ahead of the election by constitutional commissions and independent offices. But for now, I hand things to Sophia Wanuna, who is on Moi Avenue. Sophia.
Thank you very much, Rita Tindena. Indeed, we are in the heart of the Central Business District in Moy Avenue, right in front of the Tom Mboya Monument. And today, as we talk about and as we focus on Kenya's economy and the elections and its impact on the economy of this country, we cannot talk about that without mentioning the all-important tourism sector. Tourism industry is the second largest foreign exchange earner in the country and contributes close to about 10% to the country's GDP. So in a few short moments, I will be talking to Mureithi Ndagwa, who's the Managing Director of Kenya Tourism Board. But for now, I hand you over to Ferdinand Omondi, who's in Mombasa.
Thank you, Sophia. Good evening, live from Mombasa. As you mentioned, tourism is Kenya's second largest foreign exchange earner, but the locals of Pwani here are really feeling the money. That will be speaking to one of the people who has actually managed to benefit by exploring one of the avenues through which tourism can generate income. Plus, the port of Mombasa, is it a sleeping giant or is it pure mismanagement? To privatize or not to privatize? We'll be talking to one man who pulls no punches in dressing down both the KPA and the KRA. This is one interview you do not want to miss. But for now, that is for now. For later, I'll come to you back later. But for now, I'll hand you over to Linda Ogutu back at the studios. Linda.
All that coming up, but first, here are the day's highlights.
We are satisfied with the level of preparedness of the judiciary to handle any disputes.
Na nyinyi mjitokeze, mtu akitendawili saa 7 awe ameenda nyumbani.
60% ndio wanajitokeza kupiga kura, lakini 40% hawaendi kwa kituo cha kupiga kura.
Hii maji tunataka kupiga na ingie ndani ili watu waweze kupata maji kwa njia ya rahisi.
All right, we begin with some of the numbers that we will be looking at tonight. And for that, I hand you over to Eric Njoka.
Very well, Linda Ogutu. And yes, we'll be looking at the numbers and the business agenda tonight. And we are asking you, first we'll start with the question, what happens, here is a question for you. What happens if none of the aspiring presidential candidates attain the electoral threshold required to win the presidential race in the first ballot? Well, you know the correct answer. It will be a runoff. It's inevitable. And this is what it would mean and what it would cost the country's taxpayers. First, the logistical aspect in case of a runoff, all the 33,000 polling stations would demand a complete overhaul, meaning redeployment of polling staff, redeployment of security staff, and transportation of ballot materials will all be increased. And again, the polling stations and the ballot boxes would be distributed, meaning the cost of transporting the boxes is also a requirement. Moving on to the next board here is the financial implication in case of a runoff. This would have a direct implication. The Electoral Commission has set aside 2.5 billion shillings for a possible 2013 presidential runoff. Part of the plan in their budget is to pay the temporary staff who will be redeployed to their respective 33,000 polling stations, the allowances to the security agencies at the polling centers, and since new ballot papers will be required, the money will also account for the printing costs. Like you see, the payment of temporary staff, extra allowances for security agents, and printing ballot papers will be a requirement. Moving on to the third board, and it's actually indicated that we may be having an extra 6 billion shillings to comply with that, and this will include cutting down or slowing down investments in the country as the anxiety grows over the election process. The contenders in the runoff will be required to actually start new campaigns, and yes, the campaigns are funding within 1 month. This will account for that. The runoff will definitely cow the investors both internally and internationally, and some of the government projects planned for the year 2013 may have to be delayed. All this will put Kenya virtually at a standstill if at all a runoff becomes a reality. And this is what we are saying: slow down investments, increasing campaign funding, general anxiety ahead of the runoff if at all we'll have a runoff, and also slow down takeoff of government projects. We surely know what the government is planning to do with the money that has been allocated for these respective projects. But if this doesn't work, well, the planning again will be to the government to at least know what will be planned ahead of the runoff. But now this is what the numbers are saying. I'll now take you back to Linda Ogutu for more details on the other side.
Eric Njoka, thank you so much with a look at the several scenarios with the 5 days to the general election. Now, for several years, agriculture was the mainstay of Kenya's economy, contributing up to about 24% of the GDP. However, there has been a decline over the years, begging the question, just how crucial is agriculture to Kenya's economy going forward? Our North Rift reporter Mercy Kandia spent time with some farmers and now reports on the state of Kenya's agricultural sector.
The road has been rough for many farmers across the country. Many here in the Rift stay in hope that soon the wheels will change, that the struggles they have gone through with the previous regimes will ease after the March 4th general election.
That is the true facts. That is the true facts. Shida moja, tunafanya kazi, lakini serikali haiwajibiki na vile sisi tunataka.
Planting season starts in a couple of weeks, and the usual cycle of uncertainty around the planting season starts all over again, as if scripted year in, year out. The confusion at the doorstep of the National Cereals and Produce Board is already piling pressure on local farmers, especially smallholder farmers.
Usipopata nafasi kwa wakati mzuri kama fertilizer ama nini, uchelewe, hautapata mazao mazuri.
The Rift Valley has maintained its title as the country's breadbasket, supplying thousands of tons of cereals to the rest of the country every harvest season. According to the Food and Agriculture Organizations of the United Nations, FAO, majority of Kenyans depend on agriculture for their livelihoods and survival. However, the high cost of inputs and fuel, coupled with consecutive seasons of erratic rainfall, have driven down annual maize production, making it difficult for the country to replenish its cereal stocks.
Na ndio tunataka serikali itulinde na bei ya vyakula yenye tunasalisha. Unaweza salisha chakula mengi, lakini ukose soko.
I meet up with this group of farmers. They have joined effort to cut costs. Farming input became almost impossible as an individual.
Begu ilipanda. Bei yake ilipanda, ilishoot kabisa. Kutoka last year tulinunua na 25 kg tulinunua na 32.50. Lakini mwaka hii tumeenda kuangalia bei yake, hata nimenunua tayari inaongea 37.50. Sasa tumeshindwa.
Tunaomba hii serikali ya county ikifika hawana maneno ya bei kabisa. Tunalia hiyo kabisa kabisa.
County government ikikuja iangalie sana juu ya pesa yenye wanalipa wakulima wakati wanapopata mazao zako. Sawa. Si waongoje mpaka tuende kwa barabara na matawi kujitafutia. Pasipo hawa watafutie sisi.
To walk a mile in these farmers' shoes is agonizing, beholden by a myriad of challenges. The farmers, not only in the Rift but across the country, remain optimistic. Optimism shared across the Kenya's economic length that after the elections, things will only be better. The troubles of a farmer are many, but in the same way Kenyans have faith with the new constitution, these farmers have the same faith with the new system of county governments. Their hope is that this new system of governments will look into the grievances of these farmers. Marcy Kandi reporting for KTN in Kabrovu village, Uasin Gishu County.
Marcy Kandia with the look at agriculture, just 5 days to general election and the issues that farmers want addressed. Let's now cross over to the coastal region where Ferdinand Omonde is standing by with a different look from that end. Ferdi.
I must say I'm impressed with Marcy Kandia, who has a side job as a tinga-tinga driver. I think I should learn some fishing. But on to serious matters now. Tourism, as you mentioned earlier, is a main driver of economy in the country. Actually, the second largest foreign exchange earner. And right here, the coast is literally the backbone of economy in many of the areas. But then some locals have complained that they've been set aside or sidelined from the main money-making variations in tourism. A lot of them relegated to the less glorious job descriptions of beach boys and prostitution. So then, are there opportunities or is the business acumen missing? I spoke to a man who has discovered how to make money from tourism in a way, and this is his story. Josiah Masharia Chege attends to his grocery business along Diani, Ukunda, South Coast. The need to feed his family, coupled with the lack of job opportunities in Nairobi, drove him all the way here from Thika in central Kenya, and he says when he arrived, all he saw was opportunity.
Na ndio nikaona sasa ile kazi kana pesa ambayo inaleta pesa kwa haraka ni kazi ya tumbo, kazi ya chakula. Kwa sababu hata ule mtu akojela lazima atakula.
8 years down the line, Masharia is a successful grocer in an area he admits has high demand for fresh products, which forces him to seek supplies from all over Kenya to meet a high demand.
Sasa kuweza kuassemble hizo vitu na kuleta kwa soko kama hii ambapo kuna ile market yake, tunaona hiyo ndio advantage tulikuja tukatake.
The advantage Masharia gained was his ability to see the need to feed the tourism industry, and since then his clientele has expanded to the numerous hotels around the coast and even individual tourists who are spotted walking in and out of his grocery every so often. He says his ability to provide some products that would otherwise only be available in supermarkets has given him an edge.
Wa customer wengi sana si wala wanapendea sana mambo ya refrigeration, atimali wa refrigeration. Sasa hiyo tukatika advantage. Meaning that sasa hizo vitu zetu zikakuwa ziko na ready market ya haraka sana.
Masharia is successfully reaping from the vast tourism industry via one of the avenues, supply. Tourism is one of Kenya's biggest foreign exchange earners and is arguably the backbone of the coastal economy. But not many locals are reaping big from it. Swale Juma, who is employed at the grocery, attributes this to lack of exposure.
Elimu, hiyo ndio ni mzuri. Kwa sababu watoto wakisoma ndio watajua chenye watafanya mbeleni.
However, education has not been the strength of this region, with 5 of the 6 counties of the coast perennially performing dismally in national examinations. The irony is that tourism has played a part. Many school-going children spend their days as beach boys at the service of rich Mzungu women. Women and girls have also subjected their bodies to exploitation by the tourists in exchange for quick money. This has in turn proliferated child sex and drug abuse. Some experts blame this on poor leadership.
That the leaders of this county need to come out and sensitize people on the need for performance. Because what we normally see are people who are so given to receiving handouts. And parents will send their kids to the beach. As long as you get a mzungu and he gives you some money, that is sufficient.
Let's forget employment and nini. Create your own employment. Look which employment is so potential.
Businessmen like Masharia here had the acumen to discover one of the many ways through which they exploited the vast tourism industry, and now they are seeing the benefits. Something which the county government must also look to instill on their locals, to open their eyes a bit wider and see how else they can benefit, and also then provide the avenues so that it can be much more fruitful than it is right now for the locals. Perhaps a starting point would be for some locals to invest in farming so that they may eventually provide Masharia with a supply which requires him to travel far and wide to obtain for his market. Well, I must say I enjoy the apple and some juice, but some insight that also Mashara gave me that I did not share in the story is that he feels that the tourism industry is going down. There are no new hotels coming up, and the tourists are feeling that coming back to the same hotel is driving them off. They're also complaining about the state of infrastructure, especially the delays at the ferry, which they say sometimes inconveniences them rather. So there are many other aspects that need to be discussed, but I do know that the Kenya Tourism Board is represented, and that's why Sophia Wanuna will take it over from here. Sophia.
Thank you very much, Fadi Omondi. Indeed, we are live in the Central Business District, and as we highlight the impact of elections on the economy, here tonight we are paying special attention on the tourism industry, and I'm joined by the Managing Director of the Kenya Tourism Board, Mureithi Ndegwa. Thank you very much for making time to be with us.
Thank you very much, too.
As I mentioned earlier, tourism, of course, a big player when it comes to our economy. We cannot ignore it, seeing as the money it brings into the country, and of course the attention, with the rest of the world being knowing that Kenya is one of those beautiful places you can come on holiday, and also business. But it was adversely affected during the 2007 election. The numbers dipped in terms of the earnings from the tourism industry. Would you quickly take us through 2007, the numbers dipped, 5 years on, how is the tourism industry coping?
Thank you very much, Sophia. Indeed, you're right. Tourism is one of the major contributors to the exchequer in this country. And indeed, we contribute about 10% of the country's GDP. Now, as you rightly observed also in 2007, 2008, as a result of the post-election violence, there was quite a significant effect in terms of many sectors of the economy. And for tourism, we were also not left behind. We actually got seriously affected. And if you look at the numbers, just to talk about the statistics, as you mentioned, 2007, we had about 1,048,000 international tourist arrivals. And when you talk about international arrivals, you're talking about those people or visitors who come through the port of Jomo Kenyatta, port of Mombasa, and also by cruise ships. Now, the following year, 2008, the numbers dropped to a whopping 729,000. That is a 30% decline as a result of the effects of the post-election violence.
All right.
If you look at the revenue also, because the revenue also goes hand in hand with the tourism, in terms of arrivals, the revenue we had generated in 2007 was about 65 billion Kenya shillings. And then it dropped to about 52 billion Kenya shillings. That again is a drop of about 20%. So indeed, tourism was hard hit. It was seriously affected by the post-election violence. And what we've seen is that over the years, every time there's an election, there's a little bit of a dip. But the dip in 2007, 2008 was very big. Now, what did we do then after that?
Maybe very quickly, sorry I can cut you short, we need to take a short commercial break in a short while, but how far have we come between 2007, you've talked about the dipping of the numbers, very negative decline of course there. Now, how is the industry doing?
We took about 2 years to recover. In fact, it was not until 2010 that we did fully recover, so much so that by the year 2011, we had actually fully recovered, and 2011 actually became the best performing year for tourism in this country since independence. In terms of international arrivals, we generated about 1,265,000. And in terms of revenue, we got about 97.8 billion Kenya shillings. So there was full recovery by the year 2010, with 2011 being the best performing year. And this was as a result of the concerted effort that was done by KTB, Minister of Tourism, and all the stakeholders.
All right, we're going into another election and a pre-election period. Of course, campaigns have been going on. And today I came across an article from one of the international media, and concerns already arrived that tourists are not coming in, not as many. How are the numbers now coming to an election? How has business?
I must say that there's been a little bit of a decline in terms of international arrivals or visitors coming into this country, because the international arrivals that we talk about, these are visitors coming into this country. But the thing is, you remember initially the elections was slated for August, then changed to December, and then pushed to March this year. Now, what therefore we did see is that last year, which is 2012, soon we are going to be announcing the results, because we have already been able to collect the results for last year. But there's been a slight decline when you compare 2012 with 2011.
Right.
The port of Mombasa especially has suffered quite a bit, with a dip of about 20% year on year comparing the arrivals in terms of the numbers. And the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, a slight increase of about 1.7%. But when you look across the board, Last year, 2012, there was a slight decline as compared with 2011. But this has been compounded by a number of factors, not just the whole aspect of the perception about security and insecurity, but also because of some of our traditional source markets. The markets in Europe, they have gone through a bit of a hit as a result of the Eurozone crisis. And there's also the insecurity that we've had in some of the markets, especially in Mombasa, and some incidences also in Nairobi.
One quick question before we take a short break, sir. As we go to the election, of course, messages of peace going around and everybody praying that it will be a free, fair and peaceful election. As an industry, what measures have you put in place to cushion yourself? I mean, at the end of the day, nobody knows how this one will go. And the biggest concern is that the race is neck and neck for the top leaders in this race, according to pollsters in the past couple of weeks. What measures have you put in place very quickly, sir?
Now, we learned our lesson in 2007, 2008, and therefore we've put some measures in place, and this is what we call the pre, during, and post-election campaigns or strategies towards ensuring that even if there's a dip, the dip will not be that very much. One of the things that we learned very quickly in 2007, 2008 is that we need not over-rely on some traditional markets. And so we set out to diversify our source markets by bringing in tourists from other parts of the world, from the rest of Africa, growing also the domestic tourism, and also from other emerging markets. And we've seen that in the last 2 years or so, the main growth driver has actually been the emerging markets. The second thing also we did do is we set out to do product diversification. This is where instead of Kenya being seen as a destination that is mainly for beach and wildlife safari, we set out to diversify our tourism product. And we've seen growth in some of the segments, which again we'll also be talking more about, especially areas to do with the business and conference tourism, things to do with budding, and meetings, incentives and conferences. That is what is called MICE.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate your insights and your thoughts on that. You are watching the Election Center. We now take a short break, but do stay with KTN.